3 a.m. She's awake, staring at her phone. She has 17 unread notifications, messages from men begging for her attention, pictures of expensive restaurants, promises to treat her like a queen. But there's one name she's obsessively searching for on that screen: yours. Not because you texted her more than the others, but because you did something her primitive brain can't ignore. You forced her to choose you without her even realizing it. And the most brutal thing about all of this is that it wasn't with flowers, it wasn't with poetry, it wasn't with declarations desperate. It was with a psychological principle as old as war itself. Desperate, it was built on a psychological principle older than warfare itself, a tactic Machiavelli once used to sway rulers and bend outcomes. You are not waving flowers, reciting poetry, or begging for recognition like the others fighting for a moment of her attention. You are applying a strategy that flips the balance of control without her noticing the shift. Every time you try to convince her to choose you, you surrender power. Every long message explaining your worth, every eager reply, every attempt to prove that you are different only weakens your position. Her mind, shaped by ancient survival rules, interprets such behavior the same way it has for thousands of years. What chases is lesser, what pursues is needy, what begs is unworthy. Like a lion that never goes after the prey standing still, a woman does not instinctively crave the man who waits for commands. She is drawn to the one who does not bend easily, the one who resists, the one who moves on his own terms. This is not cruelty. This is ancient biology still alive inside her decisions. Women with choices behave according to those deep instincts. They do not choose the man who showers them with the most affection. They choose the man whose presence feels earned, not demanded. Good men lose themselves trying to stand out, while the men who understand the hidden rules rise without competing. Machiavelli exposed the raw nature of human behavior, noting how quickly people shift, forget, and act out of greed or fear when options overwhelm them. In attraction, this truth appears clearly. When she has many candidates, she becomes selective to the point of irrationality. She discards 90% for minor details and overlooks major strengths because abundance skews judgment. And in that chaos, she becomes obsessed with the one she cannot easily categorize. The man who does not chase becomes the man her mind fixates on. This begins the real psychological game. She starts analyzing your silence, replaying your tone, questioning why your presence feels different from the rest. She notices your lack of desperation, your steady energy, your refusal to compete in the arena where others are exhausting themselves. This contrast forces her attention toward you in a way that logic cannot undo. The more she tries to understand you, the deeper she falls into the loop created by your unpredictability. You are not offering more. You are offering scarcity, intention, and controlled distance, and those elements activate instincts she cannot turn off. What the other men give freely loses value. What you guard becomes precious. And once her mind locks onto that difference, she begins chasing the closure she cannot find. She wonders whether your restraint is confidence or mystery, strength or indifference, and that uncertainty creates a pull she feels but cannot name. She begins imagining your intentions, questioning your motives, and constructing stories around your behavior, each one pulling her deeper into the psychological tension you never had to force. She becomes invested in understanding you, and that investment becomes attachment, the very bond she never expected to form with the one man who refused to compete. And slowly, without realizing it, she starts choosing you long before she admits it to herself. What begins as curiosity evolves into desire, and desire transforms into pursuit, all because you mastered the ancient rhythm her instincts still obey. In this silent exchange, she feels a shift she cannot control, a pull she cannot deny, a gravity she cannot escape. Compelling her to choose you requires understanding something neuroscience uncovered 2 decades ago, a discovery that quietly rewired how we see desire, reward, and human attachment. It is called the variable reward effect, the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive and keeps people pulling the lever long after logic tells them to stop. When attention is predictable, constant, and always available, the brain categorizes it as low value, like water from a faucet, useful but not exciting. But when attention appears in irregular waves, sometimes intense and sometimes absent, the brain releases dopamine every time it receives it. That uncertainty creates obsession because the reward feels earned, not given. When you communicate with her in a pattern that is never fully predictable, you activate this same circuit. The other men send daily messages, predictable compliments, repetitive greetings, signals her brain has already learned to ignore. But you arrive in moments she does not expect, bringing energy she did not anticipate, leaving her mind trying to decode your timing. This inconsistency is not neglect, it is strategic space that gives your presence emotional weight. She begins wondering when you will speak again, replaying conversations to understand your rhythm. She becomes more invested not because you offer more, but because she cannot map you. The human brain hates uncertainty, yet it is drawn to what it cannot fully control. This tension keeps her engaged even when you are silent. Your value rises not from effort, but from mystery, not from abundance, but from precision. Machiavelli wrote that unpredictability is a form of power because it forces others to adjust to you. And that is exactly what happens. She begins shifting her behavior, subtly matching your pace, checking her phone more often, waiting for your presence like a reward she cannot demand. You are no longer one of many. You are the only one whose attention triggers anticipation. That anticipation slowly becomes desire, and desire becomes attachment, all built through a rhythm her instincts still obey. This psychological pull is subtle at first, a quiet shift she barely notices, but it grows stronger each time your presence interrupts her expectations. She may tell herself she is not thinking about you, yet her mind drifts back to your messages, your timing, your tone. She compares the depth of your conversations with the shallow noise the others send. She senses that you operate with intention, not desperation. And that contrast becomes a mirror that exposes the hollowness of every predictable man around her. Casinos do not pay out every time you play, and if they did, the thrill would vanish instantly. They pay out in random intervals, sometimes giving you a win that feels electric, and sometimes giving you nothing at all. It is the unpredictability that keeps players locked in, convinced that the next pull might be the one that changes everything. This same mechanism appears in human attraction. When you give her constant attention, predictable good morning messages, steady replies, and endless availability, her mind treats your presence like a routine she can safely ignore. But when your attention arrives with intention rather than habit, when your presence feels selective instead of automatic, her brain begins releasing dopamine in irregular bursts. Those bursts create emotional tension that she does not understand but cannot turn away from. The other men flood her with attention until their voices blend together into background noise. You, however, create moments that feel rare, moments her mind replays because they arrive unexpectedly. She starts waiting for your presence the way a gambler waits for the next payout, not because she is desperate, but because the uncertainty keeps her invested. She may pretend she does not care, but her mind anticipates your next move. She checks her phone more than she admits, wondering whether your silence is confidence or distraction. Your unpredictability makes her curious, and curiosity is the seed of attachment. Machiavelli understood that controlled uncertainty creates influence, and that those who master timing often gain more power than those who rely on force. You are not withholding affection, you are shaping the emotional rhythm that guides her reactions. She begins matching your energy, adjusting her pace to yours, offering more of herself just to feel the spark your presence brings. The tension you create becomes the invisible thread pulling her toward you no matter how many options surround her. She is no longer responding to the men who chase her. She is responding to the man whose attention feels like a rare reward. That reward becomes a loop her mind continues chasing. Each interaction leaves her wanting just a little more, not because you manipulate her, but because your presence ignites feelings she does not experience elsewhere. You have stepped outside the predictable pattern she is used to, and that alone shifts the entire dynamic. She starts wondering why you feel different, why your words linger longer, why your silence feels heavier. She may tell herself you are simply busy, but deep down, she senses that your attention carries weight. And weight creates desire. The more she tries to understand your rhythm, the more you take up space in her thoughts. You are no longer just another option, you are the unpredictable variable her mind keeps returning to. Over time, this tension becomes addictive, a cycle of anticipation and emotional release she cannot easily escape. She begins checking her notifications with a quiet hope, feeling a spark each time your name appears. This is how the loop forms: anticipation, attention, reflection, longing. It repeats without effort from you, powered entirely by the uncertainty you maintain with discipline. She feels the shift growing, a pull she cannot name, a tension that deepens each moment you remain just out of reach. Every pause feels heavier, every message hits deeper, and every unanswered question pulls her further into the gravity you create without effort or intention. She follows the pattern even when she tries. Now comes the practical implementation of this, and this is where we separate the men who implement from those who only consume theory. First strategy: strategic withdrawal after the emotional peak. This means that after your best conversation, after the night where you really connected, after the moment where she felt something intense, you disappear. Not immediately, not cruelly, but you withdraw gradually. You respond more slowly, become a little less available, and she is left in a psychological state of wanting to return to the emotional high you created. Second strategy: unsolicited intermittent validation. Most men misunderstand this because they think distance means never giving anything, but the truth is far more nuanced. You offer rare, meaningful validation without being asked, not generic compliments, but targeted observations that prove you see something deeper in her, and then you return to your normal distance. That shift hits her harder than all the predictable praise she receives from others. Third strategy: the genuine abundance framework. This cannot be faked. You cannot pretend to have a full life while obsessing over her responses. You must build real passions, real projects, real purpose. When you truly have abundance, your energy changes. There is no neediness in your voice, no urgency in your replies, no hidden agenda in your actions. This quiet confidence becomes a magnetic signal she feels even through a screen. Machiavelli warned that those who depend on hope show their weakness, and weakness is sensed long before it is spoken. When you desperately want her to choose you, your energy betrays you. But when you can walk away at any moment, when your life continues whether she stays or goes, you project a strength that draws her in. She begins adjusting her behavior to match your tempo, interpreting your restraint as depth rather than disinterest. This creates a shift inside her mind. She starts to chase the emotional certainty she once assumed she controlled. The honorable exit amplifies this effect. When she hesitates or pulls back, instead of clinging, you give her space with dignity. You say with calmness that there is no pressure, no expectation, only authenticity. This reverses her assumptions. She is used to men holding tighter when she loosens her grip, so your willingness to release her awakens a fear of loss she cannot ignore. Humans value what can slip away, not what is always within reach. When she senses you are not anchored to her approval, her instincts begin to shift. She starts imagining scenarios where she loses access to your presence, and imagination fuels desire. She wonders why you feel different, why your calm affects her, why your silence stays in her mind longer than the words of men who chase her endlessly. This fear of losing you becomes the spark that transforms casual interest into emotional pursuit. It is subtle at first, appearing as curiosity, as longer replies, as unexpected questions. But beneath those small shifts lies a growing desire to secure what feels rare. The more she tries to understand you, the more you occupy her inner world. She begins initiating conversations just to check your emotional temperature, offering more presence in hopes of receiving moments of your attention. Each interaction reinforces the quiet power you hold, not through force, but through disciplined control of your energy and availability. She feels the shift tightening around her emotions, drawing her closer with every unanswered question and every moment she cannot predict. Now, the question you're probably thinking, isn't this manipulation? Isn't this playing with her emotions? And the honest answer is that it is a psychological strategy based on how the real human brain works. But it is no different from the way she uses makeup to change your perception of her beauty or the angles she chooses in her photos. Courtship has always been a dance of signals and strategies. The difference now is that you finally know the rules instead of losing because you didn't realize there was a game at all. If you truly build genuine abundance and emotional independence, you're not faking anything. You're becoming the kind of man the female brain is wired to choose. Manipulation would be pretending to have options you don't have. Real strategy is developing yourself so deeply that she feels your value without you having to broadcast it. This leads into the tension cycle, the emotional pattern that compels her attention. You create tension with selective absence, with standards, with self-control. She feels that tension and seeks relief, and you give small releases through meaningful conversations, deep moments, or rare validation. But you never fully resolve the tension. That open loop keeps her invested. Her brain hates unfinished stories, hates unanswered questions, hates emotional mysteries it cannot decode. While other men give complete release and lose her interest, you leave space, and that space becomes the arena where her mind works for you. She replays your words, tries to interpret your tone, wonders why you feel different. And the more she tries to solve the puzzle, the more attached she becomes. Humans are addicted to completing emotional loops, even more than achieving certainty. That is why she keeps coming back to your presence, trying to understand it, trying to feel it again. You are the open loop she cannot close. The other 17 men present themselves completely, leaving no tension and no mystery. But you remain undefined in just the right ways, creating a psychological gravity she cannot ignore. That gravity grows stronger each time she senses your confidence, your independence, your lack of neediness. She starts chasing the emotional clarity she once thought she already had. She tries harder, leans in more, reveals more of herself, hoping the puzzle becomes clear. This is how pursuit begins, not through force, but through emotional imbalance she feels, but cannot fully articulate. She invests more attention into you than the men trying to win her. She wonders why your approval feels heavier, why your silence carries weight, why your presence feels earned instead of given. And once that imbalance forms, the dynamic shifts entirely. She is no longer evaluating you, she is trying to secure you. The fear of losing someone who does not need her becomes a powerful motivator. It activates instincts older than language, instincts that push her to protect the bond she feels growing. She starts imagining what life with you feels like, not because you sold a dream, but because her mind created one on its own. She begins to notice how your presence affects her mood, how your messages shift her emotions, how your distance makes her think deeper. Each moment becomes a small test she gives herself. Why do you matter more than the others? Why does your attention feel rare? Why does your silence stay longer in her thoughts than their words? These questions become the seeds of emotional attachment. She feels the shift and cannot escape the pull you create without effort or intention. She wants more. Desire. The final phase to force her to choose you is the most counterintuitive of all. It is called the honorable exit offer, a psychological reversal that breaks every expectation she has built from years of attention from desperate men. At some point in the interaction, when she hesitates or begins to pull back, instead of pursuing, instead of proving, instead of escalating, you do something rare. You give her permission to leave. Not with frustration, not with bitterness, not with emotional pressure, but with calm acceptance. You tell her that there is no need to force a connection, that authenticity matters more than approval, and that you want something real, not something dragged into existence. This shocks her system because it flips the power dynamic instantly. She is used to men clinging when she withdraws, begging for another chance, trying to earn their way back into her attention. But you walk with dignity, and that dignity awakens a primitive fear inside her, the fear of losing someone valuable. Humans value what can disappear. We do not chase what is guaranteed. When you demonstrate that you can live without her validation, her instincts flip from comfort to concern. Suddenly, you are not the man who can be kept waiting in the background. You are the one who can be lost forever. And that realization tightens around her emotions. She begins reconsidering her hesitation, replaying the way you carried yourself, wondering why your calm affected her more than the intensity of men who begged. She senses your self-respect, your inner stability, your refusal to compete for attention. That energy makes her feel something powerful, the desire to secure you before someone else does. This is the psychological reversal Machiavelli would call a strategic retreat, pulling back just enough to make the other side move forward. When you offer the honorable exit, you prove you are not afraid of loss, and fearlessness is magnetic. It makes her question her own value rather than yours. She begins thinking about what it would mean if you truly walked away. She begins imagining the absence of your presence. And imagination creates longing. The more she imagines losing you, the more she wants to avoid that outcome. What was once casual now feels fragile, and humans protect what feels fragile. She starts giving more effort, offering clarity, leaning into the connection instead of avoiding it. This shift happens silently but powerfully. She is no longer deciding whether you fit into her world. She is trying to keep you in it. That shift is the essence of the honorable exit. You walk away not to manipulate, but to show that your value does not depend on her choice. And once she feels that, the balance changes forever. She starts checking her phone more often, wondering if you are still there, hoping you have not moved on. The fear of losing access to you becomes the spark that drives her to re-engage. She begins sending longer messages, asking deeper questions, revealing more vulnerability. She invests because she feels the risk. She wants to rebuild the emotional bridge she once took for granted. She becomes attentive in ways she never was before. Each moment of silence from you now feels heavier. Each small interaction now carries meaning. She realizes that your presence is not guaranteed, and that realization makes her fight for the connection rather than leaving it to chance. She feels the shift tightening around her instincts, pulling her closer with every moment she imagines a life where you are no longer reachable. She needs you. She craves you. So here is the implementation plan you begin today. First, you must audit your life with ruthless honesty. Do you have true abundance, or are you pretending? If you lack purpose, build it. If you lack discipline, create it. If you lack a life beyond her, construct one brick by brick. This journey is not about acting like a high-value man, it is about becoming one. Second, you must implement the variable reward principle with precision. Sometimes attentive, sometimes distant, always intentional. Never predictable. Predictability kills desire, uncertainty feeds it. Third, remove every trace of neediness from your interactions. You do not need her reply, her validation, her approval. Emotional independence is the strongest seduction tool you possess. Fourth, practice strategic withdrawal after emotional peaks. This feels unnatural at first because your instincts tell you to chase, but chasing destroys polarity. Distance strengthens it. Fifth, master the honorable exit. This is your psychological sword, the tool that reveals your power. When you can walk away without flinching, you become unforgettable. The final truth is the hardest to accept. You are not forcing her choice through manipulation, but through evolution. Women are wired to choose the man who can thrive without them, not the man who collapses in their absence. Ancient instincts still rule modern hearts. She does not fall for the man who loves her the loudest. She falls for the man whose life has gravity. You become that gravity when you stop begging for her effort and start demanding excellence from yourself. The other men beg. You build. The other men chase. You attract. The other men try to impress her. You impress yourself, and that confidence radiates into the world in a way she cannot ignore. And once you step into that version of yourself, everything changes. She feels your presence differently. She reacts to you differently. She begins investing in ways she has never invested in anyone else. Not because you tricked her, but because you awakened an instinct older than civilization. The instinct to choose the man who does not chase, yet cannot be replaced. The man who can walk away, yet is worth holding on to. The man whose silence speaks louder than other men's declarations. Your value becomes something she feels, not something you explain. This is the man she chooses when she has infinite options. The man who stands apart because he stands alone. The man who does not bend for attention. The man who does not fear distance. You are no longer one of the 17 voices in her inbox. You are the open loop her mind cannot close, the tension she cannot resolve, the mystery she cannot walk away from. And in that state, she chooses you not out of convenience, but out of instinct. Because losing you feels like losing possibility itself. That fear becomes desire, and that desire becomes pursuit. She starts imagining a future with you, not because you asked her to, but because her mind created the vision on its own. This is the pinnacle of attraction. when she chooses you in the privacy of her thoughts long before she admits it out loud. And when that moment comes, remember this: you did not win by chasing her, you won by mastering yourself. This is the truth most men never learn. Power in attraction is not about control, it is about inner stability. When you rise above neediness, you rise above competition. When you build a life worth living, you become a man worth choosing. She feels that difference in every word, every silence, every moment you hold your ground. If you're tired of being another name in her phone, if you're done chasing women who only choose the men they can't control, and if you're ready to become the kind of man a woman's instincts are designed to follow, then hit subscribe right now, because the psychology in this channel isn't cute, it isn't romantic, and it isn't for the weak. It's for the men who want to understand attraction the way Machiavelli understood power, with clarity, strategy, and unshakable self-control. So like this video, drop a comment, and step into the 5% of men who actually evolve. The next level of this dark psychology is waiting. And once you learn it, you will never be the same man again.